Welcome to the Unleash podcast, brought to you by Embrace the Power. Unleash your potential, make your impact. I'm your host, Amy Lee Miller. Remember to check out our show, Affiliate Planetary Design, your one-stop shop for all of your coffee brewing, indoor and outdoor coffee brewing needs. So just because you are roughing it does not mean you should have to sacrifice a great cup of coffee. And now with Planetary Design, you don't have to. So check out their website linked below with offer code 1886. And I am very excited to welcome to the show today a very special guest, one of New York City's top rising comics. You may know him from his debut on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. He's also a regular at the Comedy Cellar in Manhattan. And you may also know him from his HBO special, Romantic Comedy. Please welcome to the show, professional stand-up comedian Ian Lara. Ian, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I know it's really great to have you here. I know how busy you are. I've been following you. I understand you've been touring around. You've got, you're still on tour. You're going to be in DC next week, and then Baltimore, and then Kansas City, right?
Yeah. I'm touring pretty much till the, I don't know when it'll stop, but it's till the end of the year, and then we'll fill it up next year too. So
that's amazing.
That's just my job to just tour.
Yeah. Are you loving the traveling that comes with comedy once you've made it, or does it get a little bit exhausting? And how do you keep a balance?
I mean, I don't think I experienced the traveling of once you made it, because I'm traveling in coach and traveling in private jets. So
okay.
Like traveling, look, everybody knows, like, it's not easy. It's hard. It's annoying. It's tedious. It's taxing, but it's still like, I still just look at it like, but other people are at other jobs who also have to deal with stuff. So it's like, this is just what I got to deal with my job. So I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah. Very positive attitude. And you got back from Africa not that long ago, doing comedy out there. How was that? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, that was a great experience. It was my first time in Africa. I kind of wanted to check off like performing in different continents, and Africa was one of the ones that I was missing. I'm still missing Australia. But it was amazing. It was a great experience.
I can imagine. Okay, so that was one of my questions for you, if that was your first international comedy tour, but it sounds like you've done a lot of international comedy.
Yeah, no, that wasn't my first one. I've toured through Israel. I've done Turkey. I've done a bunch of countries in the Caribbean, Canada. I don't know if we're counting that, but yeah, it wasn't my first one. I went to Kenya, and then I did Dubai like a couple of weeks later too.
Wow, that is amazing. Do you find that people's sense of humor varies quite a bit internationally, and then even across the United States? And do you tend to adapt your performances a little bit accordingly, or how does that work?
Not really. Like, I kind of just do my show. I can't write a new act for like the country that I'm going to, so I just
right.
Certain things is like little things where like culturally I'm like, all right, they might not, the things are not the same, and culturally, like, so they might not get it. So if I am cognizant of that, I'll just like, I probably won't do the joke, or if I have a reference that's an American reference, I try to change it into their whatever local thing they got. Like if I'm talking about, if I'm joking about a bank, instead of saying an American bank, I'll just be like, what's the bank here? And I'll just say the bank and make some relate to it a little bit more. But other than that, I pretty much do kind of the same show.
Yeah. And when did you know that comedy was your career direction, and what sparked your drive to pursue stand-up comedy?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just tried it on a whim because people told me to, and I watched it on TV and I thought it was really cool. So I figured out how to do it. But from the first time, like how to do it, like you sign up for an open mic and you go do it. That's how you start. I figured out how to start, and once I started, I was just like, oh man, I really love this. Like, this is just such a cool job. Like, I just always thought it was, and still, I mean, it's 12 years later, I still think it's so cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, so I was going to ask you how long you've been doing it. So that's a long time. Was there, and you hear from other stand-up comedians, and I'm wondering if it didn't take you as long, but people tend to say it takes about 10 years to really get it going where you're getting booked and you're making a career out of it. Did it take that long for you?
I don't know. I wouldn't say. I mean, I did the Tonight Show when I was 7 years in when I first did the Tonight Show, and I had already got some stuff. I had already done the Tonight Show. I had got Comedy Central. I did it, so I had some things. But obviously, I think like the longer you do it, the more you feel comfortable. And 10 is a good place to be like, okay, I feel good where I'm at on stage, and I feel like I've been doing this long enough where I am a comedian. So I do think 10 years is a good metric to have, but I don't think it's like at the 10-year thing, like this stuff like it happens before, it happens after. It's just kind of like it's kind of just the luck of the draw, I think.
What about talent?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I know people who, like, I remember starting off, and I know people who like a year in got stuff and then fell off. It's like, so I don't know, like, would they say, was that talent or was that, I don't know what that was, but
Wow.
I think
Okay.
everybody's story is like a little different. I know people that's it's taken them. It took me longer than it took like a lot of my friends to get this stuff. But then when I started getting the stuff, I kind of just started getting like a lot of stuff. So I don't know, like, I don't know how the industry works, and it's ever changing. Like when I started, like Instagram and clips weren't the way to do it, but now like you can start today and tomorrow you could be selling out all over the country if you become a TikTok star or Instagram star, which like it's a changing industry.
That's amazing. Do you find that as you grow and evolve, your style of comedy and your content tends to evolve with you as far as the topics that you talk about?
Oh, sure, of course, yeah. When I started, I was 20 years old, so like I didn't have anything to talk about really, and it was hard for like even when I did have stuff that I thought I could talk about, I felt like it was hard for the audience to like care what I had to say because they were just like, you're just like a young person who doesn't know anything about life. But as I got older, I mean, I'm only 32, but as I got older, I feel like I've gotten like more people like on stage. It feels like they trust me more. I don't know if that's me getting older or me just getting more comfortable on stage or getting more comfortable with stand up, but I definitely feel that it has evolved and grown with me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I would imagine maybe it's a little bit of both as far as the audience trusting you.
Yeah. I also think like I know more or less what I'm talking about. Like at 20, I just literally didn't know what I was talking about.
Are your style when you were 20, were you telling jokes about yourself, or because some comedians will talk about, their personal stuff, their experiences, and some, keep it like Jerry Seinfeld, of course, just keep it very generic is not the word, but light, nothing to do, with their deep stuff. What about that for you? Did that change from when you started to where you are now?
I think I live somewhere in the middle. Like I'm not like some super airing out family secrets up there, and I consider myself more observational anyway. But I think I'm in the middle of like those two things where I don't want to get. I personally like I don't want to get like some comedians are like I just tell everything, and I'm like that's cool, but like in my family, they like if I just start talking about my family like personal things, I feel like they have a role in it too, right? Because they're not comedians, but they're like, hey man, you're telling our stuff out there.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And I'm a person who exists too. So I kind of feel like I never want to put them like make them feel like that. But I do have some jokes where I make fun of them, but it's always like very like it's always in a fun thing. I'm not like airing out their dirty secrets for my comedy.
Yeah. It sounds like you're close with your family and they're supportive of your career.
Yeah, I mean, I am close with them and they're definitely supportive now. Not that they weren't before, but now it's like they're super. It's difficult for them because they're from my family. They all came from the Dominican Republic. I'm first generation here, so I'm the first time they've ever heard of like stand up as a job. They still don't even really realize that it's like that it was like a job, sustainable job where you could make a living on it.
Is it not a sustainable job in the Dominican Republic? Are there stand-up comedians over there? Okay.
No. No way.
Uh-huh.
No, I mean, in most other countries, it's not like in any of the countries that I've been. Like, you could be the superstar that does arenas in that country and does the huge theaters and people come out to see you, sure. But like a touring thing at a comedy club, no, I feel like it's only like a couple countries that have that access where you could like you can be like a mid-level comedian and you could just make a living. You can make a great living just touring the country, doing comedy
Hmm.
clubs. There's hundreds of comedy clubs all over the country. You could do that, but in I think in other places you can't do that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, that there's probably not an abundance of comedy clubs in other
Yeah, there's
countries like there are here.
yeah, no infrastructure for it. Like they just don't have them. They're trying to
Yeah.
develop them. Like when I was in Kenya, that's what some we were talking about with like the local. They have their scene is brand new. They were talking about like developing and but that takes years. I mean, obviously they'll develop faster than we did because we were kind of like at the forefront. So when we started, it took us a lot longer. Now people kind of just take the blueprint and they can catapult a little faster. But I was telling
Hmm.
them to the younger guys, I'm like, as far as like making a living doing comedy, you like just comedy, it's not feasible here. There's no venues. Who's going to pay you? Like you need a comedy club to bring you in and pay you, and you guys
Hmm.
don't have that. So you got to kind of try to pivot and maybe like get on television and do stand up. Sometimes try to find different avenues of income.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah,
So your romantic special comedy, so that came out November of last year, right?
yeah, romantic comedy. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious how long in the making was that project for you? Full hour of comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I actually did that one pretty quick because I had done a Comedy Central half hour. I did two of them in the same year. I did the Comedy Central half hour. I filmed that in July 2021, and that came out in January 2022. And I filmed the HBO one in July 2022. So basically, in like a year, basically, because I filmed July 29th, I filmed Comedy Central, and then July 14th, the next year, I filmed the HBO one. So that was practically a year, but less really because at that time my mom had just gotten sick and she ultimately passed in October, and I wasn't really going on the road. I didn't really go on the road like that till January. So I would say from January to July, so about 7 months.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry to hear that. I didn't know about your mom.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So it was about 7 months.
Hmm. Yeah. Is that or what is do you have what's your biggest achievement? I mean, that you're the proudest of. You've got a lot to be proud of. I'm curious if there's something that stands out to you, that's kind of the biggest thing that you're proudest of, and how did you get there?
If I had to honestly pick, if I had to say like for me, what it is for me, my what I'm like the most grateful for is the fact that I get to do this for a living. Like I get to like, I don't have to. I kind of was able at least to this point create a life for me that like I just do like I don't have like a boss and I get to do pick and choose the things that I want to do. That's like amazing to me. Like because I didn't want to have
Yeah.
that. Obviously, that's like why most people get into comedy. I didn't want to have that. And obviously, you work on TV shows, you work on this, and you have somebody that you need to answer to. But it's just like I
Hmm.
didn't want to have like my boss call me into the office. Like nobody like can even if I just like don't show up to my shows. There's nobody that can like reprimand me. Like the only people that would reprimand me work for me, and I would just be like, all right, I'm not listening to this. Like they work for me, which is nice. I'm very proud of that. Not that I would do
Yes.
that anyway. I'm not. I wouldn't even do that. I've always in all my previous jobs, I was always like super responsible, but I just
Okay.
didn't want to have that over. Like I just didn't like it. But if I had to pick like a single thing, it would probably be the HBO special because that was like just a huge thing, and especially with the
Yes.
passing of my mom and all that stuff. I was supposed to film in November. I was supposed to film November 2021, but she passed a week prior, so they pushed it back another year. So there was like a lot of build up for it. And then when it
Okay.
came, we filmed in New York. My whole family was there. It was like very emotional and nice for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very special. Yep, I was so I'm of course in the city too, and
Mhm.
was walking down the street and I see a big billboard, Ian Lara romantic comedy. So yeah, I was really excited
Yeah, that was also a cool
to see
experience.
that.
Being from New York, like being from New York, all my friends are here, all my family here, and having all of them walk around and have like a seeing my like they're always sending me photos of like the train station and the thing, of having my stuff all over the city.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that, and I'm sure that a lot of people would agree that our mindset dictates our actions. And then of course our actions are what create our life, our circumstances. So I always like to get inside the mind of somebody who is succeeding at their goals, at, you know, what's important to them. So I'm wondering if you have a process or a dominant mindset each day that drives you to keep going as you pursue your goals.
I think I just have the same. I think I've had the same mindset, mind concept that I've had since I like started. Like I kind of just go through like all the things that everyone goes through. Like I feel like I'm a fraud. I have imposter syndrome. I feel like I don't deserve things, and then that
Wow.
helps me work through it. That makes me work harder. I write more, and it gets the stuff better. And that's kind of just the process. It's kind of like a circular wheel where I'll write it. I think it's terrible, and then I'll work it out. I'll be like, I have to get it better. I have to get it better, and then I get it better, and that's the process. It's reached the point where, when I tell people, like sometimes people be like, "Oh, you shouldn't have imposter." I'm like, "No, no, this is my process. This is how I create. This is fine. Like I'm not hurting. How I create. I need to feel this way."
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really encouraging. I think that's going to be encouraging for a lot of people, because that's something that a lot of people have, whatever their goal is. You know, and I had that. I really believe in myself. That's one thing that I've had since I was little tiny. And so I love encouraging others to believe in themselves too. But when I was even making my first motivational video, or getting ready to publish my first book on Amazon, that thought went through my mind, like, what if this is stupid?
Yeah.
What if everybody thinks this sucks? But I find, you know, you just have to push past that and, you know, just do it anyway. But
Yeah.
it's so interesting that that is actually part of your process. So you actually use that to your
Yeah.
benefit.
Yeah, I've kind of learned how to do it. Like I'm not the kind of person that'll sit here and like listen to like a motivational speaker and like really feel motivated. Like it doesn't motivate me like that much. Like I get it, but like for me, it doesn't make me want to go do the next great thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, what makes me want to do the great thing is like feeling inadequate. so so I learned that about myself, and I'm just like, yeah, this is what I need. I just need this motivation. When I'm motivated to do stuff, I feel like I'm just anxious and I'm
Okay.
going fast nowhere.
Okay.
But when I feel like, hey, I have a special that I need to get ready for because it's gonna be terrible, then I'm like,
How long is there, like a timeline that do you know about yourself? It's going to take me this amount of time to prepare, or can you also kind of get ready in a quick amount of time if you need to, or how does that work?
But for the last special, I mean, I knew again, I it was a whole thing. I had already had the thing for HBO, but because of the pandemic, it kept getting pushed back. And then Comedy Central was like, hey, we'll give you a half hour, but we're filming in 2 weeks. So I said no to them originally.
Wow.
I said no to them originally because I was like, I don't have material to do both.
Mm-hmm.
My manager was like, he kind of convinced me. He was like, hey, you could do it. Don't worry, like you can do it. He's like, just say yes to Comedy Central. We can do it. He was like, we'll stall HBO for as long as we can. We'll stall. He's like, maybe there'll be another wave. It'll get pushed back a little bit. We'll stall. We'll give you time to do it. So I did the show for Comedy Central, and then right immediately after, I didn't know when we were gonna film. So I was like working under the thing where like every day I was writing. I was like, I have to come up with like a new act. I don't really have. I had a couple things, but I didn't have like a new act. I just had to write it, and then my mom ended up getting sick, and I kind of had to take a step back of touring, but I was still writing because that's one of the things that kind of helped me deal with the loss of my mom was like the creative process of like creating new stuff and making people
Yep.
laugh. I was doing it, so
Mm-hmm.
I think I work well when I have a deadline like that. I think that's when
Yeah.
I work the best because now I don't have a deadline, but I'm kind of like I'm like just live. It'll come to you. Like it'll just come. Don't put
Yep.
pressure on yourself to constantly create. It'll just come to you. But I
Uh-huh.
think I'm going to probably within the near future, if I could, like probably get myself on a deadline of like or get
Like give yourself self-imposed deadline, or what do you mean?
or maybe hopefully somebody will give me a deadline. Maybe a
Mm-hmm.
big streaming company will give me a deadline for something.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you've had it happen a few times now, lots of times. So it'll keep happening for you.
Like that'll motivate me, which I feel I get in complete panic mode when that happens, but it's how I operate.
When you get a deadline, you get in
Yeah.
complete panic mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to make it sound like, because panic mode I guess is subjective, because like I'm pretty like calm, so like this is panic mode for me. It's just like
Well, you said a couple things that I think are key. It sounds like you know yourself really well. I think the better we get to know ourselves, the better we can solve our problems and achieve our goals faster. So you know what motivates you, you know how you work best. And also you knew from sounds like since the time you were young that freedom is one of the things that drives you. You knew that you didn't want to have a boss. So I think, you know, we don't always know exactly what our future is going to look like, or maybe we know the goal that we want to get to, but we don't know how we're going to get there. Or maybe we don't know exactly the goal, but we know how we want to feel. I think the better we get to know, we know ourselves, and we can give ourselves what we need and then accomplish our goals faster. What do you think?
Right. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think what works for me doesn't work for people. Some people like really thrive off like being motivated and getting motivated, and they need that, like, that's the charge that it gives them, and that worked for them, and that's amazing. That's why like that's why motivational speaking exists and stuff. And I'm not saying that I watch motivational speakers and I'm not just like, and I'm like, no, I'm not like, I'm going to sleep. I'm not like that. Like, I watch it and I'm like, yeah, like I get it. I get the charge that it puts into people, but for me, it's short lived. If it's not, if I don't have the things that I need to continuously keep going, and usually that's like a deadline.
Yeah. I just want to go back to the imposter syndrome thing again, and how that can be a positive for people, because a lot of people will let them be something that holds them back, but you use it to push you forward. What advice would you give? And maybe you do have some up and coming comedians that reach out to you for your advice, but on what they can do to continue working toward their goals. But do you have any advice you'd want to share? It could be comedy or otherwise, just anybody that's working toward their goals and that's coming up against that imposter syndrome that's such a natural thing.
I feel like, and this might sound, I don't know, but I feel like most of the people who I speak to that have imposter syndrome are usually good at what they do. It's usually the people that are completely delusional, that have no imposter syndrome at all, that they just feel like, yeah, I should have everything. I should be the best place ever. So the people who have imposter syndrome, I think, remind yourself that, like, you feel like an imposter because you're probably getting opportunities to do stuff at a high level, but you're not an imposter because you're getting those opportunities because the people who make those decisions think you deserve the opportunity. So I think it's like important to keep that in mind. Like, that's what I do. Like, even when I feel like, oh, I don't, you know, why am I here? Like, I don't belong here. I'm not at this level. It's like, well, the people that create this thing think you're at this level.
Yeah.
So you know, I would say listen to them, trust them, that they trust you, and that in part trust yourself, because they do.
Yeah.
I don't even know you, but I can, you know, and you're like, you shouldn't trust me, right? But I think it's important to, like, I think imposter syndrome can be good if you don't let it get out of hand. Like, if you're able to, like, harness it, kind of like, where you're just able to be like, I see what's happening right now. I know why I feel this way, but I'm gonna motivate myself to, like, work harder and, like, and rise up to the challenge.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple things that made me think of. One, you know, it's good to have some fear, to have some nerves, because that means you really care about what you're doing. You have some stake in the game. And then if so, you know, like you said, it's likely because you're getting the opportunity because you are good, you know, at what you do, and you want to make sure you're good because you actually care.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. When you hear about like stories from, like, cast members when they first get to Saturday Night Live, they all feel that. They all feel like this machine is way too big I don't deserve this, and then like a lot of them rise up and become stars, and like, that's what it is. There's a reason why the machine chose you.
Yep. You're calling it the machine. I would call it the universe. Some people would call it God or whatever, but I think that the universe gives you what you are ready for. So if you're getting that opportunity, or even if you get an idea or something that you're curious about, that's there for a reason. So go in that direction.
Yeah, I agree. I call it. I definitely would say, like, I say it's the universe thing, but I think sometimes I question myself because when some people be like, oh, it's the universe, as if it's like the universe acting on its own, like without your control. But I think a lot of times it's like, no, it's the way you position yourself, that this is what comes back from the universe when you position yourself this way.
Yeah.
If you're positioning yourself this way, these things the universe wouldn't behave this way, right? It's not like you just sleep every day and not do anything and think that the universe is going to present this thing to you. But if you start at it and you give it what feels like your all, then I feel like then the universe kind of like shifts things into, at least that's how it works for me, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that 100%. I agree with you too. I think that yeah, the universe could have I think the universe wants us to have what we want, but we have to it can speak through us and give us ideas, but we have to take action.
Yeah.
And yeah, believe that we can achieve what it is we want. And I think that if we wouldn't get the idea, the thing that drives us, if that weren't what's meant for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I have, yeah, I sometimes I spend a lot of time like being introspective and thinking about stuff like that. Cause sometimes I'll hear people that be like, that'll say things like, especially in the business, they'll say like, "Oh, I did this. It was meant to be." And I was like, "Was it meant to be? You did comedy for 20 years and worked extremely hard at this. This seems like
Right.
worked and earned this. It just doesn't seem like something that was just out there and was going to happen regardless. You really, I feel like you made this happen." So sometimes I instead of for me at least, that's one of the things that kind of build myself up. Like when I have imposter syndrome, instead of thinking like it was like destiny. It was like, no, you've made this happen. You've created this with what
Hmm.
you've done. Obviously, with help from whatever forces have helped you, but like you've created this through your work and through your thing. So how could you be an imposter if you've created this?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you mentioned hard work. And what do you think about discipline? Do you think does discipline play a big role in your routine and your process?
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing, especially if you're in the arts. When you don't, that's the problem. See, a lot of people I think don't want a boss, but a lot of people I think need a boss. A lot of people need to be told what to
Hmm.
do and when to do it. And I'm not. That's not. There's nothing bad about that. It's like everybody in my family's ever had a boss, and they're great people. But I'm just saying they need that because if they didn't have that, they just wouldn't do it, right? Like this podcast, for example, nobody's telling me to do this. Like I have to be like, I'm going to do it. I want to do a podcast. It'll be good. It'll be a good conversation. It'll be
Hmm.
helpful. But there's nobody saying like, hey, at 3 p.m. you have to log in and do this. So I think in the arts, discipline is probably I would put it over talent sometimes.
Hmm.
Like the
Oh
discipline.
yeah, yep. You hear motivational speakers talk about that a lot too. It's
Yeah.
discipline and hard work, and not necessarily the smartest person, but then also belief in yourself too. Which I think the belief in yourself, you got to have that in order to be disciplined. Would you agree?
Yes, yeah, I think, but I remember like back from the early days, like now now the things that I do are kind of cool. I get to go places and do things that are pretty cool. But I remember for like the first 5 years, it was just brutal open mic after brutal open mic. And the
What's your definition of a brutal open mic?
well, the problem, not the problem, but the thing about open mics is that it's like the ocean where it's like you have comedians that want to be comedians that you have comedians that like really want to make this a profession, right? Then you have people who are like just a hobbyist, like seeing like what this is a fun hobby, which is nice for them. But then you have like a guy who's like going through a divorce and wants to
Okay.
talk about his wife, right? Then you have people that like need therapy, like should seek professional help, like right, it's this mix of everything, like as the thing, and
Yep.
you just want to kind of like go to school for comedy and learn this thing, but you got to sit through these whole things where you're just like,
Right.
and obviously, I mean, I came up with I used to do a lot of the Laughing Buddha mics, comedy mics in New York, which for me, I always felt like these were the best of the best because
Hmm.
go to the other ones and the stuff that was going on there, like I mean, it was just I don't know. I remember immediately, like from the moment I got to the open mics, I was like, I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, it's a lot of time, big time commitment, and then when you're up and coming, you're not getting paid for comedy yet, so you've got to have a job, and then you've got to put the time into to write. So some comics, I think, don't necessarily write their stuff, but you sit in and actually write out your stuff, or what's your process?
Yeah, I think that's like part of the discipline too, because a lot of people are funny people, but at least I believe until you reach a point, I've heard Bill Burr say this, like Bill Burr says he writes it on stage, but he said it took him 25 years to get there. He used to write all the jokes, he used to write them down and try to make them funny. I think some people say that they write on stage and they'll say that like I can't sit down and write, and it's like You can
Right?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
Uh-huh.
It's tedious and annoying. I get that. I
Yeah.
hate it too. Like it's very hard for me to sit down and write too. I just do it.
Yep.
Other people's like, I can't do it. It's like, you can sit down with a pen and
Yes.
write the idea that you have on the paper and try
So
to make
good.
it funnier.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah.
that. But
Absolutely.
as comedians, we're like, no, I write on stage. It's like, because you're funny, right? You're funny. So you can be funny on stage. But it's like, I personally believe, but the work, until you get to that level, the work is pen and paper, I think, which some people's like, oh, then it sounds too robotic. And it's like, well, you could not write it robotic, right? You can just not read it straight off the paper. But I think
Yeah.
everyone who's on stage and is coming up with great bits on stage, I always feel like that's amazing. And if you sat down and wrote it, it would take it to the next level.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It would be so much better if you have that natural ability to get up there and just talk
Yeah.
and be funny and then take it and write it down. And so you said that you find it tedious, that process. But do you, because this is what I find when I'm not necessarily dreading, but I know I have something to do and I know it's going to take a lot of brain power. Once I get started, sometimes I'll tell myself I'm just going to sit here. Like when I was writing one of my books, I didn't have anything coming to me that day. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to see what happens. Do you find once you get started that it just starts to come and then you actually feel like doing it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I look at the writing process of like the same way I look at, like, for example, dating. Like when I speak to a lot of my friends, both guys, girls, a lot of the especially now, all of my friends were in our like early 30s, so like a lot of my friends are saying, especially the women are saying that like how bad dating is. Like no matter where they're at, they're like, dating is so bad, and I'm like, well, dating is not supposed to be good. Like if dating were good, everybody would just be dating all the time. You're supposed to find your person, whoever that be, and get out of it because it's
sucks. Exactly. Yeah. Who wants to date? Dating is not fun. And you're right. It's not supposed to be fun. Yes. I love that. That's good.
It's supposed to be random and annoying and embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's what it's supposed to be. But I look at writing the same way, where it's like, if I sit down to write something today and I get nothing, like that's part of it. That's not like, it's not like, oh, writing it sucks. It's like, this is what writing is. Like sometimes you come up with nothing and sometimes you come up with a lot.
Right.
And at the end, when your book is done or your special is done, whatever, then you like, it evens out.
Yeah.
So I sit down a lot and I'm like, I got nothing. And I feel frustrated and I get all those things. But then I just remind myself like, oh, this was just what it was today. Like it evens out. I've written a lot of good stuff. So it'll even out if I just keep doing. You just got to keep doing it.
Yeah. Just part of the process. That's so good. Biggest challenge that you're comfortable sharing that you've overcome?
Probably losing my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if I would say I'd overcome it, but being able to like accept it and continue to move forward has been difficult. I was only 30. I was 30 when she got sick, 30, 31. So, and it was sudden completely. She got cancer and passed away in 3.5 months. And I was like one of the main caretakers for her. So it was very, very difficult, especially being in an art form where I'm supposed to entertain.
That would be really, really hard. Yep. And you feel like your comedy, you're just putting your work into your art is one of the things that helps you continue to pull through.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like I'm definitely in a better space now than I was immediately after it happened. But immediately after it happened, I kind of realized it kind of gave me a bigger affinity for the arts and for what I do, because I immediately after I lost my mom, I understood why some artists can write their best work when they're going through their darkest moments. Because when you're going through like your darkest moments, the only thing that gives you that light of joy is this little thing that you created, right? So it's like you can be depressed in your house or sad in your house. I wouldn't say I was depressed, but you can be sad in your house the whole time, and then you come up with this idea and you're like, yeah, I got this music. And for a second it keeps you going, and as it goes building, it gets better and better and better, and then you have this thing where you're like, I think I have a piece of work here where I'm like growing, and that's like the thing that kind of kept me going. Like after, without comedy, if I just had a regular 9 to 5, I don't know what I would have done. I guess I would have just, I mean, I was in therapy and stuff too, but I guess I would have just been like, I don't know, like at home. I think.
So important to, good for you on that. I think it's so important to have a purpose, know what your purpose is, at least know what drives you, something that lights you up. And even if you do have a 9 to 5 and you can't do the thing that lights you up all the time, do a little bit of it, focus on it a little bit for at least an hour a day. It's just going to uplift you and you're going to feel much better.
Yeah. Because I'm the youngest in my family. All of my other brothers and sisters, they have 9 to 5 normal jobs, but they all have kids. So I felt like the kids did their thing that helped them like kind of thing, but I don't have kids, so I didn't have that. So I'm glad I had comedy because they all kind of were like, all right, well, we still have a family that we have to like raise, and I was just in my apartment by myself. So I'm forever, I feel like forever indebted to comedy. That's why I never really take it for granted, and I always try to like give it what it deserves.
That's so good.
Whenever I'm thinking like, oh, I write on stage, I'm like, this is the thing that's giving you like all the things you have. Like you can't sit down and write for it for like an hour a day or whatever. I don't write every day. I'm not gonna pretend. A lot of comics like to pretend. It's like I don't really believe anyone does, but like I go through phases. I go through phases where I'm writing a lot, but that's kind of like my mentality where it's like, this is giving you all these cool trips to Dubai, Africa. It's only because of this. So at least you owe it to sit down and try to give it, the work that it requires.
Absolutely. And you did. And that's why you are where you are. So that's awesome. Really great stuff. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. So we can head to your website and see all of your spots where you're going to be on your tour. You're heading to DC, Baltimore, and then Kansas City. I'm just going to miss you because I'm going to be there. My dad's there. So I'm going to be in Kansas City visiting him for the 4th of July, but you're going to be there after that. Yeah.
I think I haven't added it yet, but I'm going to be in Hartford, Connecticut the weekend after the 4th of July. No, in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Okay.
I like Kansas City. I've been there before. I really like it.
It's nice. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. So we can check out your website, I'll post your Instagram as well. What's the best way to stay updated with your upcoming projects?
Website and Instagram. I post everything up there. The special is streaming on Max. It's called Romantic Comedy. And a lot of my stuff is up on YouTube. So if you just put my name in YouTube, you'll get all the things.
Yes, you will. Very funny. I've been watching and I've been laughing at your stuff. So great to have you. You're absolutely an inspiration. It's great to hear that, not that we want anybody to struggle, but you're human. You go through struggles just like everybody else, but the difference is you're pushing through them, you're sticking with it, and you're working hard and out at what you love and having gratitude at the same time. So that's awesome.
I'm trying. Yeah.
Well, keep going so that we can benefit from your great comedy. So thank you again so much, Ian, for coming on the show. Great to have you here. Thank you to our listeners. And remember to stay tuned in. Remember to like and subscribe to Embrace the Power for more upcoming inspirational interviews. And until next time, stay curious.